So now we reach the section on intending because we're on the integrals of the prayer. And so the author says an intention is integral because it is some part of the prayer without which it is invalid by consensus. Yani, that statement is defining the integral for you. And it's telling you why the intention is an integral. Because of the definition of an integral. Isn't the intention a part of the prayer without which the prayer is invalid? Yes, then it's an integral. An intention is integral because it is some part of the prayer without which the prayer is invalid. By consensus, it is to have a valid end in heart. So basically, what I did was, while I worked on this, I just looked for different synonyms for the word intention, and I used a number of them because I think that helps to expand the comprehension. So the intention is to have a valid end in heart. That means to have a goal, which is the intention. Not merely by tongue, has to be in heart, not merely by tongue. Not merely by tongue means the tongue could share with the heart in the intention, but it can't merely be the tongue, and it could merely be the heart. So it is to have a valid end in heart. End here means intention or goal. Not merely by tongue. At the beginning of an act, that's what a Shafi'i says an intention is. A niyyah. That's what a Shafi'i says a niyyah is. It is that goal of doing the deed when it's associated with the commencement of the deed. Except in the case of what? In which case? Which case is an exception to what we are saying about the intention here? Fasting, that's correct. For you. In this case, it is the easy time of the opening takbir. Yani, what is the easy time of the opening takbir? The beginning of the act. Because the act here is the prayer. So at the beginning of the act, which in this case, because it's the prayer, it is the easy time of the opening takbir. Why the easy time? Because that's what the scholars said, because the Shafi'is, that is. That's what the Shafi'i scholars said, because someone might say, when you tell them you have to make the intention at the time of saying Allahu Akbar, you might say, isn't that difficult? Someone actually asked me that question. So my answer to him was, the scholars said it's not difficult. So it is the easy time of the opening takbir, not a prior decision as opposed to Malik. The niyyah is not a prior decision prior to the deed. Because when you have in your heart that you want to do something, but you didn't do it yet, then that's called making a decision. So making a decision is not valid for the prayer to be valid. It's not sufficient for the prayer to be valid. Rather, one has to make the niyyah, which is that goal in heart at the time of commencing the deed. One way to define the simultaneity, yani, the intention and the takbir being at the same time. One way to define that, chosen by the Imam al-Haramain, and also by Al-Ghazali and by An-Nawawi in the explanation of Al-Muhadhab, is what is normal to the commoner, such that he is counted as having remembered his intent. What is normal to the commoner, such that he is counted as having remembered his intent. So if you take this definition of the simultaneity, then you're not saying it must, the intention must be at the same moment as the takbir starts and lasts throughout the entire takbir. That means something different. And that's a saying. According to this, it is not a condition to ensure that the intention lasts the entire duration of the takbir. And remember that the time to intend shortening is during the takbir. So that's a benefit for you. Because shortening is a particular case, not an ordinary case. Shortening a fourfold prayer is not an ordinary case. And we're now just getting started talking about the intention. But as a benefit, there's a reminder here for you. Remember that the time to intend shortening is also during the takbir. Yes. So the time to intend shortening is during the takbir. And also another reminder. The time to intend delaying the prayer, the time to intend to delay the prayer is after the time starts. So if you wanted to delay Dhuhr, you need to wait for the sun to decline from its zenith to be able to make that intention validly. And remember that the time to make the intention to advance the later prayer to the earlier time is any time during the prayer that you're praying, the early one. So anytime while you're praying Dhuhr as a traveler, you can make the intention to bring Asr forward. Anytime while you're praying Maghrib as a traveler, you can make the intention to bring Isha forward. So then, what are we saying here? We're saying the intention, the niyyah, is at the beginning of the deed. In this case, is with the takbir. And then we're going to say what else the intention involves. And something else goes in the takbir sometimes. The intention to shorten needs to be in your takbir. And since we went there, then the intention to delay is after the time comes in. And the time for the intention to advance is any time during the prayer. When you say even if it is within takbir, anytime during the prayer, anytime during the prayer, from in the whole prayer. Yani yes, even within the takbir. Constant resolve is a condition. That means you can't have the intention to interrupt your prayer. It is possible to forget that you made the intention. Yani it's possible to forget your intention, to forget about your intention. It's possible for your mind to drift away from the fact that you made an intention and then it's not on your mind anymore. That's not going to invalidate your intention. As long as you don't intend that you're going to break your prayer. If you don't have such an intention, then you have the constant resolve, which is a condition for your intention. You said, I didn't intend the intention to delay after the time is in. Okay, so let's do something here. Remember that the time to intend shortening is during the takbir. And the time to intend delaying is after the time starts. And the time to intend advancing is any time during the prayer. So the shortening, inshallah, that's clear for you. Fourfold prayer, which is Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha. If you're a traveler, you can shorten them to 2 rakats. So in order to do so, you have to make the intention while you're saying Allahu Akbar to shorten. You're going to be basically intending, now I pray Dhuhr as 2 rakats. Now I pray Asr as 2 rakats. Now I pray Isha as 2 rakats inside the takbir. The intention to delay means you want to delay Dhuhr until Asr time, or you want to delay Maghrib until Isha time. So you need to wait for Dhuhr time to actually come in to make this intention to delay the Dhuhr time until Asr time. So, in other words, let's say it's Fajr time and you're a traveler and you say, how's my day going to go today? I got to do this and this and this. Well, I intend to delay Dhuhr until Asr time. It's not a valid intention here because Dhuhr time didn't come in. So, even if you made such a decision, at this point, that's only a decision. You've decided to delay Dhuhr until Asr time. So when Dhuhr actually comes in, then you need to reaffirm that intention that you're going to delay Dhuhr until Asr time. So the time for delaying, for intending to delay, the time for intending to delay is after the time of the prayer you want to delay starts. So that's for Dhuhr and for Maghrib. Because you can delay Maghrib until Isha time. And the time to make the intention to advance the prayer, which means to pray Asr at Dhuhr time and to pray Isha at Maghrib time because you're a traveler, is any time during the first prayer, because you're basically praying sets of prayers. Dhuhr and Asr at Dhuhr time, Maghrib and Isha at Maghrib time. So that's what you want to do. Then start your Dhuhr. If you want to shorten it, you're going to make the intention while you say the takbir, dhuhr 2 rakats. Now, anytime during this dhuhr, you're going to intend advancing asr, and same thing for maghrib and isha. So if you forget to intend dhuhr or any fourfold prayer as 2 rakats during the takbir, then you missed it. You have to pray your prayer at complete length. And it's not permissible for you to interrupt your prayer just to remake your intention to shorten. But if you were to do that, it's valid. Interrupting the prayer like that is a major sin. Ameen wa fikum. Constant resolve is a condition. Therefore, a long doubt about its validity is invalid. Yani, it invalidates. Yani, you made an intention, and then for a long time, or you were involved in your prayer, and then for a long time, you were doubting, is my intention valid? Did I validly intend? Then your prayer is invalidated because you lost the condition of constant resolve. And even a short doubt, if one completed an integral with this doubt, if you went from one integral to another integral while doubting about the validity of your intention, then you have invalidated your prayer and you have uh, lacked the condition of constant resolve. So then, out of all of that, what's not invalid? To doubt for a moment, like a brief moment, and then to become sure after that without completing an integral during this doubt. Then your prayer is still valid. Intending to interrupt it, it could be the prayer, or it could even mean the intention, but means really the prayer. Intending to interrupt the prayer now or later is invalid. Yani invalidates the prayer. But forgetting the intention after establishing it is not. Forgetting the intention, like I already told you, like for your mind to drift away from your intention and therefore you are not mindful of your intention anymore, this is not invalid. Your prayer is still valid. You know what's similar to that? What's similar to that is a person who's a Muslim, but he's not strong in his faith, such that he doesn't commit blasphemy, but he doesn't have his religion in mind strongly. May Allah protect us. Thinking that one is praying another prayer and finishing under that impression is not invalid. Yani, You're praying Dhuhr, and then at some point in the prayer, you thought you were praying Asr. You did intend to pray Dhuhr, and you're praying Dhuhr, and somewhere in your prayer, you thought you were praying Asr. This does not invalidate your prayer. And even if you finished your prayer under that impression, it does not invalidate your prayer. And the prayer does not turn voluntary, Yani. It's not going to become a voluntary prayer for you, and you need to repeat. Hence, there is no difference that prayer breaks by interrupting the intention, which is not a mere thought, about stopping according to the Imam. The mere thought about stopping your prayer is not in is not an intention to interrupt the prayer or to break the intention. Mere thought means the idea of stopping is not going to interrupt your prayer, according to the Imam. That's Imam al-Haramain. As opposed to fasting, according to what is most accurate, meaning fasting does not break by interrupting the intention. This is where fasting and prayer are different. There's no difference that prayer breaks by interrupting the intention, which is different from fasting. Fasting does not break by interrupting the intention. According to what is most accurate, though, when you say according to what is most accurate, means it's not a case that there's no difference. So, if you're fasting, you never learned one of the invalidators of fasting is intending to break the fast. Because it's not an invalidator. Even if you intended to break your fast, it's not broken. As long as you don't commit apostasy. Prayer will not initiate if one intends to make it contingent. That means dependent upon something. Like he says, if such and such happens, if a customer comes to the window, I'll break my prayer. So then, if that's his decision, when he wants to start prayer, it will not initiate. That's what initiate means here. It won't start. So there's two words the scholars use that are good for you to notice. One is al-butlan, invalid, invalidation. Batil is invalid. Butlan is invalidity. There's another word they say sometimes, which is in'iqad. In'iqad. Al-in'iqad. In'iqad is the initiating, like to go into effect, to actually start. So sometimes, I think in some of the English literature, it would be saying the prayer won't be valid, or it might even say the prayer is invalidated. And what it's saying in the Arabic is the prayer won't initiate. Now, Yani, that's not like a dangerous misunderstanding, but it's good to understand the difference. La tan'aqid, the prayer will not initiate if one intends to make it contingent, dependent upon something. And an initiated prayer will break for that, according to what is preponderant. Yani, if you already started a prayer, so it is valid, you initiated it, but then in the midst of your prayer, you made the continuation of your prayer contingent, dependent on something, then your prayer will break, according to what is most preponderant. Because of how we started the paragraph. Constant resolve is a condition for the intention. So prayer will not initiate if one intends to make it contingent, and an initiated prayer will break for that, for making it contingent, according to what is preponderant. for the lack of resolve, yani because of or due to, maybe that's clearer, due to the lack of resolve, like making Islam itself dependent on something. That is immediate blasphemy without difference. So it's interesting that the prayer has some similarities to the belief itself. The validity and invalidity of the prayer have some similarity to the validity and invalidity of belief, of faith. MashaAllah. Intending to switch prayers invalidates immediately, according to what is most accurate. What does that mean? So, prayer will not initiate if one intends to make it contingent. And an initiated prayer will break for that, according to what is preponderant. That means that's a signal to a difference in opinion. This alludes to that some said an initiated prayer won't break for that. So what this is saying is, yes, it will, and that's the preponderant saying that it will. And because what you want in any madhab is the strong sayings of the madhab. That's what our Shaykh taught us, rahimahullah. That's what he told us in the Mukhtasar. Then he say he took out some weak sayings and put stronger sayings there. Intending to switch prayers invalidates immediately, except when praying alone, when a congregation of the same obligation is conducted. One may change to an optional prayer and make salam after 2 rak'ats, so to catch the jama'ah. So here's a case for you. Intending to switch prayers invalidates immediately. Yani, you're praying a prayer, and then you wanted to turn that prayer into another prayer. This will invalidate the prayer you're praying immediately, except in a case. The case of you're praying alone, and then a congregation of the same obligation that you're praying is conducted. So you want to catch that congregation. It's permissible for you to change the prayer you're praying, in this case, to an optional prayer, and then make salam after 2 rak'ats, so that you could catch the jama'ah prayer. And know that if someone using proper technique falsely determined the entrance of the time, so he was mistaken, or he thought a prayer was obligatory on him when it was not, then reality became clear for him, it will turn into a voluntary prayer for him. Someone using proper technique falsely determined the entrance of the time. So he thought the time came in and therefore he prayed, but the time didn't come in. Or he thought a prayer was obligatory on him when it was not, like he prayed already. And he forgot that he prayed, so he prayed again. And then reality became clear for him that, oh no, the time didn't come in. And that prayer that I prayed was not valid as an obligation because the time wasn't in. The condition was not fulfilled, which is the time. And that other prayer I prayed, I didn't have to. It wasn't obligatory on me. I already prayed. Then what he did do will turn into a voluntary prayer for him. Since the intent is a purpose, there are necessary objectives. So all those are synonyms: intent, purpose, objective, goal, target. The first 2 objectives are by consensus. One, the goal of enacting, yani the goal, the intention of performing, the intention of performing. The goal of enacting means the intention of performing, not merely remembering the prayer, but the intention of executing its performance, so to distinguish it from another activity. So you do that, yeah, usually. In your heart, you're saying, now I pray. So that's enough. And pinpointing the exact prayer in the intention to distinguish it from another, but not absolutely. This second objective, which we said it's an objective by consensus, it's not always an obligatory objective, but sometimes it is obligatory, which is what we want to talk about here. Pinpointing in your intention the exact prayer you're praying to distinguish it from another prayer. If it has an occasion or a time. So if it has an occasion like seeking rain or eclipse, then in your intention, you're going to say, now I pray rain prayer. Now I pray eclipse prayer. Or now I pray funeral prayer. Or if it has a time, like the noon prayer, which is obligatory, or the Ratib prayer, which is not obligatory. But both of them have a time. The Ratib prayer, its time is the time of the obligatory prayer that it's associated with. Because you know what the Ratib prayer is. If you don't know, you can ask. And don't be shy. So a time like noon prayer or a Ratib prayer or holiday prayer. Holiday prayer, which is also sunnah. That's the Shafi'i school, not obligatory. Holiday prayer is not a personal obligation, nor is it a communal obligation. It is only a recommended prayer, but it's an emphatic recommendation. Emphatic means the Prophet ﷺ never used to abandon it. He would do it, yani, anything that's called emphatic recommendation. The Prophet would do it, ﷺ, whether residing or traveling. That's what it means. To be an emphatic recommendation means the Prophet ﷺ would not abandon it. He would do it even while traveling. So, since these prayers have a special time, then you need to pinpoint them in your intention. So, you're going to say in your intention, now I pray noon prayer. Now I pray afternoon prayer. Now I pray dawn prayer. Now I pray sunset prayer. Now I pray nightfall prayer. Now I pray 2 rakats before dawn prayer. Now I pray 2 rakats after Maghrib prayer. Now I pray Eid prayer. Yes, Eid prayers, holiday prayer. And aiming for an obligation. So they're just another synonym. Aiming for an obligation. If the prayer is obligatory, like a vowed prayer. So vowed prayer, yani a pledged prayer, that's obligatory on you. So you're going to make the intention when you want to fulfill that pledge, you're going to say, now I fulfill the obligation of a pledged prayer, for example. And you know the sentence doesn't have to run across your heart. Now I do such and such. It's not a condition for you to pause and then imagine the words running across your heart like a neon sign. The intention can occur in the moment. It's possible for you to intend the goal of enacting and pinpointing the exact prayer and aiming for an obligation, all of that in one moment. Like a vowed prayer according to what is most accurate to most Shafi'is. Yani, that this aiming for an obligation is obligatory according to what's most accurate to most Shafi'is. Even if it's only a communal obligation. So for funeral prayer, you still need to intend the obligation, aim for fulfilling an obligation. But this alone is insufficient. Just doing the obligation is insufficient. Yani, just intending the obligation is insufficient. For example, had one merely intended the due obligation instead of the noon prayer, it says, now I pray whatever is obligatory. So that's not valid. Instead of, now I pray noon prayer. And that would include a make-up prayer if there were one. Yani, he has an obligatory prayer to make up. So he has to intend, he has to aim for fulfilling the obligation. A child who's not obligated to do anything intends what appears to be obligatory. He intends, so he says, like he says in his heart, now I do what appears to be obligatory. For example, now I pray what appears to be the obligatory noon prayer. And in Al-Majmu' and Nawawi verifies that this intention is not obligatory on a child, to intend to do what appears to be obligatory. And Nawawi says this is not obligatory on the child. The author of Ash-Shamil was certain about that that's not obligatory on the child. And As-Subki and Al-Isnawi deemed it weighty. I don't have commentary for that last sentence though. It is not obligatory to intend the option to do a voluntary prayer. When you're praying the obligatory prayer, it's obligatory to intend the obligation. But when you're doing a voluntary prayer, it's not obligatory to intend the option. The synopsis then is that it is enough to intend mere prayer if it is an optional prayer without a time or a reason. If you're praying an optional prayer that lacks any time or reason, then you can just in your heart say, now I pray. For example, you'll say in your heart, now I pray a prayer. And that's valid. And you'd pray 2 rakats. This would unlock 2 rakats. Now I pray a prayer, which is the minimum level of prayer. Yani, other than witr, which is prescribed that way. That one has 1 rakat as per the revelation. Otherwise, you want to do a prayer that doesn't have a time or reason, the minimum level is 2 rakats. It is rewardable, but not a condition to intend the number of rakats. So you could, in your intention, say, now I pray 3 rakats of obligatory maghrib. Nor facing the qibla, but you could intend to face the qibla. You could say, now I pray 2 rakats of obligatory dawn prayer facing the Kaaba. That's valid intention. Though intending to pray noon prayer as 3 rakats or 5 rakats will not initiate. If someone said, now I pray noon prayer 5 rakats, then the prayer will not initiate, even though it's not obligatory to intend the number of rakats. But if one were to intend like that, the prayer will not initiate. And it is obligatory to specify for whom a funeral prayer is performed. If you know exactly who he is, you can say, now I pray funeral prayer for Fulan or for Fulana. If you don't know, you could say, for this dead one. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best. Do you have any question that I can answer for you?
Sheikh Red, I wanted to ask you, what does it mean the prayer will not initiate?
It means won't start. Like if a person said, Allahu Akbar, but he did something that makes initiating the prayer not happen, then he's just looking like he's praying and his prayer didn't start.
Barakallahu I understand.
I mean, what people. If it were Salatul Ghaib, but I didn't hear there's any difference. All I know is that's the rule. To intend to pray for that dead one. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. He said if you didn't know who was the one, then why are you praying? Because you might not know who the person in front of you is. So you're just going to say for this dead person. He
Sheikh
said,
Roy. Oh, go ahead.
okay, it says here, when you say for this dead one, in this case, the dead man, infant,
No, in front.
in front of you, yeah, for example, because the word this here, that word this, yani, this is the one that's important here.
Okay, barakallah
Now I
fikum.
pray for this dead person. Or now I pray for that dead person. Now I pray for the dead person, for example. You say, can the prayer be shortened and advanced? Yes. You can pray Asr 2 rakats at Dhuhr time. Yes, sister, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Advancing to advance. When you're advancing your prayer, all of these intentions, delaying or advancing, is in that beginning takbir.
Not all of them. Here, I broke them into
Uh,
bullets. The time to intend shortening is during the takbir. The time to intend delaying is after the time starts. Because shortening is one thing, delaying and advancing is another thing. It's possible to shorten without advancing or delaying. So the time to intend shortening is while you make the takbir. The time to intend delaying, Dhuhr until Asr time or Maghrib until Isha time, is after the time comes in. That means after Dhuhr comes in or after Maghrib comes in. If it was still Asr time, you said, I'm going to pray Maghrib at Isha time. That's not valid. You have to wait for the sun to go down and then reaffirm that intention. Because it has to be after, this intention has to be after the time comes in. And the time to advance the prayer is anytime during the first prayer. Advancing means you're going to pray a prayer early. So when you're going to pray a prayer early, after you pray the prayer before it, that means you're going to pray Asr at Dhuhr time. You're going to pray Isha at Maghrib time. So when do you make the intention to do that? While you're doing the earlier prayer. Anytime during, yani within the earlier prayer. Even while making the salam. Does that answer your question?